Hello everybody, Big Seven here, back for another SuperCoach video. This is going to be my round 5 review, and it's also going to be a bit of a longer type of video. I'm going to go through, I guess, my long-term plans, the premiums that I'm targeting in future weeks. So this will be quite a long video. Maybe put it on at bedtime and you can fall asleep to my voice. As per usual, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get cracking into it. So I scored 2,350 this week, which was a pretty solid score. Went up 2,500 spots to sit inside the top 3,000. Rank now of 2,215. And I ended up making 3 trades in the end. So those that have been watching would know that I took a dreadful trip on the party of a Marty boat party cruise. It was a disaster. Flicked him over to Samson Ryan. Marty obviously getting injured on the weekend. Pretty unfortunate, but thankfully managed to get off the Titanic before it sank. The second trade I made, Cam McKenzie to Tyler Young. McKenzie obviously not named and was going to be the sub, so ended up going for Tyler Young. I guess a week too late, but still at 140k, that looks okay. And then the last trade, I ended up having about 260k, even a bit more than that actually. I think it was about 300k in the bank, and I thought I'm not going to sit on my hands on this money. I'm going to make an aggressive move, and I brought in Clayton Oliver, which I've probably brought him in for one of his lowest scores of the season, but the way I see it, I am now a premium ahead in terms of upgrade cadence. So most people that have Setterfield would have held him, and I guess I'm a premium up on those people now, with plans to keep upgrading and trying to keep that one premium advantage. So I'll go through the team. I'll try and do it fairly quickly. Jordan Dawson, absolute king, 2 best on ground performances since moving to the midfield. Don't see that changing. And probably one of the must-haves. At 655k, though, it's going to be hard for non-owners to reach up to him. Nick Dacos, absolutely incredible once again, 128, averaging 130 for the season. I did not anticipate this coming, and he's been nothing short of phenomenal. The third player, James Sicily, he's the underwhelming premium that I have. And look, it just seems like going out of defense, they're not going through Sicily as much now. So it's a bit unfortunate to have him, but realistically, how many people have only Dawson and Dacos as their premium defenders? And a lot of the other premium defenders have had issues. And Adam Sard, people traded him in, and he seems to have a hamstring injury. Doherty injured. Stewart missed a week, and a lot of people traded him because it was expected to be more than a week. So, yeah, Sicily isn't ideal, but you'll struggle to find people that haven't had some kind of issue in their defense. And then the rookies, McKenna, a down score, really lifted by a goal. Cowan, I fielded him. I thought he was actually going to score okay. So with McGovern being a laid out, he scored his lowest non-injury affected game on the weekend. And then I loopholed Wilmot. I actually wasn't that confident with him going into the week, but he scored 68. So elected to put Jinby onto my bench. And then Tyler Young, 62. I think he's going to tick along nicely, and probably a rookie that a lot of people don't have. So hopefully he can just tick along nicely, going, somewhere between 50 and 60 each week, and I'll be happy with his output. Onto the midfield, Clayton Oliver, traded him in. His first half was really poor, and it wasn't really him. It was his teammates burning him a fair bit. And 115, that's a really good recovery. I think he had 20 disposals in the final quarter, which is absolutely insane. And look, I think if you don't have Oliver and you had the cash to bring him in this week, I would just say do it. His break even's 168 now, but he's just one of those players where he could have reached that 168 break even. And I think he did that last year even against Richmond. He scored exactly 168 against Richmond. And then North Melbourne coming up, who just conceded a massive score to Neil. Gold Coast, who I think are the worst team for conceding points to midfielders. So if you don't have Clary and you have the cash to get him in, I would say just do it. Don't wait for that break even to go down because there is a decent chance he doesn't go down. Other midfielders, Marcus Bontempelli finally put in a 4-quarter performance this week, and suddenly that season average looks pretty tasty. And then I guess the two other premiums I have that are on the lower end, LDU had 2 really good games to start the season, but that was against lesser opposition. Now he's had 2 tough games and 2 bad scores. I still think he'll be somewhere between 110 and 115. So very much a hold for me. And if you have him, and then Tom Green, 107 average for the season, but it was really only one big score against Adelaide in round 1, and it's been 190s. Not sure if he gets suspended or not. Even if he does get suspended, I mean, if it's 2 weeks, I still think it's just a hold. At this stage of the season, I want to be getting rookies off field, and I'll upgrade rookies to get an extra premium this week. I'll do that next week as well, and sidewaysing Tom Green to someone else, that just disrupts the whole flow of things. So unless it's more than 2 weeks, Tom Green will be a hold for mine. Connor Rozee, he's been in my midfield. New DPPs this week, so I might actually get to swing him into the forward line this week. Scored 93. The CBAs are a bit concerning for Port Adelaide. Here's something I prepared earlier, except... So, yeah, he only had 60% CBAs, and it looks like they're rolling 5 guys through there. Wines, Horne-Francis, Drew, and Butters. I'm hoping that Rozee still can be the main guy in there, though. But that rotation is a little bit concerning. Still, definitely a hold. Jacob Hopper, 115. He looked really good. And, yeah, just his movement, sidestepping opponents easily. He looked like he was moving really well, which I think was a bit of a criticism on him during the preseason. So he's someone I will cash out eventually, but for the time being, he still has a bit of cash to be made. Ashcroft, 72, starting to get towards his peak, but still doing okay. I think he scored 90 in fantasy. So Ashcroft's getting the ball, but I guess not really damaging with his disposals. He's still all right, though. Davey, I held him as a loophole, really. He's still got a break-even of 0, so if he does come back into the side, which I think he will, then he's got a little bit of money to eke out of him. Jinby, who I benched, got subbed out, got poked in the eye, and going into last week, Adam Simpson said he was looking a bit more tired, and I do expect him to be rested at some point. He's someone that I think can make a bit more money, but that'll take a while to make. So I'm definitely trading him out. I'm not a patient person. Even if he makes an extra 50K, then so be it. I will still trade him out. And then Will Phillips, traded him in round 4. It's looking like a good trade. Jai Simpkin getting injured means that Phillips even more midfield opportunity. He's just going to keep going along nicely, so happy with his progress. And then Oscar Baker, 250K, 53 scored. He's only really had the one big spike game. So he's someone that's definitely expendable. And breaking even of 46, you'd expect him to meet that. I think you can hold him, but I think the time is probably right to trade him out. The ruck line, Sean Darcy, after that 41, he's been pretty good. I'm happy that I've held him, but at the same time, watching English every week makes me want to put bleach in my eyes. English has been playing so well. He could, if he wasn't off the ground for so much in the last quarter as well, he could have scored even bigger than he did. So I think Darcy in English is the ruck line you want to have. I've got Marshall at R2, which I'm sure a lot of other people have. And he did score 123, but Collingwood didn't have a ruckman. So, yes, it's a nice score. I'm not convinced about him long term. But still, like with Tom Green, if you're trading him out, then you're disrupting your upgrade cycle. And I think he's someone just to hold on to for now. Hopefully he can go between 100 and 105 against good opposition. Samson Ryan, brought him in, only scored 56. He has shown a lot of promise though up forward. Dropped a ton of marks. You just feel like at some point he's gonna drop an 80 in there, where he'll have one of those games where everything clicks. But he will be a frustrating watch at times. Still happy to have him in my side. Forward line, Dunkley, 133. He is back. Taranto, 115. He's looking great as well. Errol Goulden, only the 88, but still averaging near 100, so fine with that. Jack Zeeble, 106, and Sheasel, 100. Both of these boys are in my kind of medium to long-term plans. Don't have any plans to move them on while they're continuing to score as they do. And then I was able to loophole Chandler with Fergus Green. I just had that gut feeling that Fergus Green, against the GWS side that had been conceding a lot of goals and points to opponents, I just had that feeling that Green would score well this week, and he delivered for me. 3 goals, 76 points. Very happy with his output. And then Chandler, only the 56. It's his second down week in a row. I still kind of have some confidence in him going forward, but he does have a reasonably high break-even. The break-even is at 47. So he's definitely someone that can be moved on. So for the next part, I'm going to go into my trade targets. And this isn't just this week going forward. This is kind of my watch list. So without further ado, I've called it Buy Planner, but this is really my target list. And so I've got each player basically segmented into tiers. So tier 1, I think you're going to need to have them to have a top scoring side from week to week. Tier 2 is kind of the players that I think are good acquisitions, but they're not in that must-have tier that your tier 1 guys are. And your tier 3, these are probably guys that I'm looking to target if they're cheap, like maybe a D6 or F6 or M8 kind of deal. I've already got a few of those players already, like Sheasel and Zeeble. And so it might get to the stage where at round 15, Sheasel has had a couple poor scores and I offload into a tier 2 player or even a tier 3. Not 100% sure what I'll do yet, but that's fine because round 15 is about 9 rounds away and we can't plan that far in advance, but there's still a degree of planning that we can do. So I'm going to go through each player in this list. I'm going to try and do it fairly quickly because I'm fairly conscious this will be a long video already. So defense tier 1, Dawson and Dacos, both Dawson playing midfield and Dacos playing in defense. Is it really out of the question that both of these guys can go 120 plus over the course of the season? I don't think so. And Stewart, he has had one down game this year, but he has the ceiling to score well in nearly every game. has a run coming up as well at GMHBA Stadium where he hasn't played a single game, but he had a lot of his really big scores there last year. And I think all of these guys, yeah. I mean, Dawson Dacos could go 120, but I'd be pretty safe locking in all three of these guys in tier one as 110 plus. And then the players that I have a little bit less certainty about, Jack Sinclair, he was, I think he was 110 last year, been a bit worse this year. And it just, like, I had a look at the kick-ins before, and it's still a fairly similar number to last year. It just seems game plan related to me. Like last year, St Kilda leaving defence, it seemed like pretty much everything went through Sinclair. Whereas this year, they've got Wanganeen Malira, and it doesn't seem like that force feeding that Sinclair had last year. And another player that was getting force fed last year was James Sicily, and even the first couple of rounds, pretty much everything was going through him. Now he's not even getting many kick-ins, and Hawthorn aren't really electing to chip it to him like they have been, late last year and early this year. I mean, maybe Norwood Oval just didn't suit Hawthorn as much, but still, it looks like the trend has been less in Sicily's hands and spreading it more amongst others. And then the other couple of guys I have in here, Luke Ryan, he actually played 22 games last year, but he has had a history of hamstring injuries. He's still looking like he's going to go okay, though. Fremantle playing a defensive game style, and I do wonder when Hayden Young's going to take over this back line. It feels like it'll happen eventually. It might not be this year, though. So Luke Ryan, I've got him in tier 2 at the moment. He's scoring well. Fremantle in the defensive system. He's racking up the points. And even this week, he looked like dropping a poor score, but managed to even salvage a 90. So Luke Ryan, tier 2 for me. And then the other one, Adam Sard, who was probably a bit slept on. People jumped onto him this week, and he's now, I'm not sure how severe the hamstring injury is, but it seems like he will be out. Still, over the course of even the last couple of years, he's been fairly consistent with his scoring, and he seems to have taken the main mantra as the distributor from halfback from Carlton. Obviously, Newman can distribute, McGovern can distribute, but and Doherty probably was the main distributor until late last year. So I still like Sard. He's definitely going to be on my hit list going forward. And then the players I've got in tier 3, I think they've all got some kind of major deficiency with them. But if they were cheap enough, I would consider them. Hayden Young, is he going to take that next step forward? He's not getting kick-ins at the moment. Luke Ryan's still very much got a monopoly on those. Mason Redman, he has big games, but he's just very up and down. Still, if he was to have a stretch of bad games, maybe he gets the 450 and he could be an option. Will Day, someone I'm very much considering bringing in next week. The role is there in midfield. I just have my reservations over his body. He's had a number of ankle injuries in the past, and also he's playing a more physical role this year. Rather than being like that halfback wing, he's actually in the midfield, making a lot of tackles. Is his body going to hold up with a more strenuous midfield role? It remains to be seen. Sheasel Zeeble, probably not trade-ins, but they're players that I have, and they're probably players that I have in that tier 3 category. Happy to hold them until they stink up, basically. Bailey Dale scored well in defense last year. Just too many mouths in that Dogs defense for me to trust at the moment. Dropped a bad score this week, maybe a couple more bad scores, and he's available fairly cheap. But still, I mean, Caleb Daniel, I don't think he's even playing in defense this year. He's someone that can slot back. Ed Richards can distribute, Johannesson can distribute, and Bailey Dale as well. It's just too many mouths to feed for me at this point in time. But if he got cheap enough, he'd be someone I would consider. Liam Baker and Dan Rioli, I mean, that's kind of the same thing with them. Too many mouths to feed. Nick Vlauston is actually the player getting majority kick-ins. And also Jaden Short has the potential to go back into defense when he is fit. So I don't mind Baker and Rioli as options, but I think with that many players that in the back half, I don't really want to touch them yet. I mean, a couple of injuries down there, and I think they become options, but for now, not for me. And Doherty, he's out for a fairly extended period of time. Wasn't scoring that great. He did have a 38 touch game, though, where he just butchered the ball. So there's definitely potential for Doherty to find his way into my side later in the season. But firstly, I'd want to see him come back from the injury first and find that form. But he will be someone that's on my radar later in the season. On to midfielders now. And the four I've got up top, and Clary's a clear number one for me. I think he's going to go 130 plus this year, which I don't think any of these other tier one midfielders are going to do. And yeah, he's just clear top scoring player in the game. I mean, maybe English, if he holds up, will challenge him. But I think, yeah, Clary is my prediction to be number one top scorer in the game. Probably wins a Brownlow as well. Maybe Dacos challenges him, but Clary, I think, is the one for me. The other midfielders I've got in that is kind of a tier 1A because Clary is clearly on top. Took Miller, he's been fairly consistent to start the year, but we see his draw start to open up now. He's got 3 really soft games, or not soft games, but they're good games coming up. He plays North Melbourne. I think he plays Richmond. Do I have a Gold Coast player? No. So he plays North Melbourne. Then he plays Richmond after that, which is a fairly nice matchup. Then he plays Melbourne, who he's scored well against in the past. And then he plays West Coast, whose midfield isn't that great. So I really like Took as a trade-in target this week. And also, that round 13 bye is very appealing. Gold Coast and Geelong are the only 2 teams that have a round 13 bye, and it's still best 18 in those weeks. So there's just a little bit of added incentive to get those players. Really like Took, and I'll back him to start scoring well with a easier run of matchups. Has also been without Witts the last couple of weeks, so if Witts comes back as well, that's an even bigger plus for him, although he did score pretty well last week without Witts in the side. The other 2, Rory Laird. Laird I'm probably a bit lower on than most, because he's only really had that one season where he was a top premium option. Year before last, he was a 115 average. And Dawson going into that midfield, it probably actually helps him a bit. But still, Laird's going to cop the attention most weeks. And I still think he'll score well. But he's probably someone I have pegged at about 115 average, rather than getting back to that 125 that he scored last year. And then Bontempelli. He's played pretty well the first 5 games of the year. The game against Richmond last week was really the first game where he's played 4 quarters. And I think, this is the year Bont takes a step up to be... I mean, he's always been a great midfielder, but I think he goes to that next level, top few midfielders in terms of fantasy scoring this year. So really, these 4 midfielders, Took, Laird, Clary, and Bontempelli, I I want my team to finish with all four of those midfielders. I've got three players in tier two, and ideally, I would like to. Um, I would like to have these players, but I concede that these could be the players that get out of reach, and maybe I miss them. First one is Neil. With they've just got a lot of players running through that midfield at the moment. Neil is a mainstay, but just a lot of players in the Wines midfield, and I just don't think he's also. I think he's 29 this year as well, so not as young as the other midfielders in Tier One. Granted, he just absolutely towed up North Melbourne's midfield, but you kind of would have expected him to do that, and also playing in front of his home, in front of his friends and family. He's a South Australian boy. Maybe this game against North Melbourne was more of a peak rather than the norm. Still, he's going to score well over the course of the year, and no real argument not to get Neil in if you like him. I've also got Zach Merritt. He's generally a player that starts the season off poorly. In fact, he started the season off poorly in pretty much every year, and he always seems to rocket home pretty much post-bye or post about round 9. So he's fairly cheap at the moment, actually, 570k, but with a tough run of matches coming up. So I don't mind trading in Merritt this week. And especially the way Essendon are playing, I wouldn't write him off from scoring well over this next stretch of matches. I think in an ideal world, though, he's probably someone I bring in a few weeks. And he is expected to be suspended this week. We'll see if that gets overturned. He's probably my favourite of the options that are, sub 590k at the moment, though. So if that is the kind of play you need to bring in, I think that's a fine trade. And then Patrick Cripps, I'm lower on him than other people are. And he won a Brownlow last year. Still, he's someone that has tended to fade out in the second half of seasons. Even last year, I think it was after the bye, he didn't score that great until the final few rounds. So, Cripps, I think he's more of a starting pick than a trade-in target for me. So, and unless he got really cheap, then I'm probably not looking to bring in Cripps, but I do concede that he is a good option. And then tier 3 of midfield, Brayshaw, he's, I guess, one of the shockers of the year. He was someone that I wasn't seriously considering, but he was someone that was in considerations as a starter, and he hasn't been great for the start of the year. I think he is carrying something, though, and if he gets cheap enough, he's definitely someone. If he gets cheap enough and then finds form, he's someone that I could see myself bringing him in. Speaking of someone that's carrying something, it's Caleb Sarong, and the thing he is carrying is that Fremantle midfield. I do think he's more of a fantasy option rather than the SuperCoach option, though. I mean, he's averaging around 110, but I don't think he goes to another level. I think he's playing as well as he can play at the moment. So if you've got him, I think it's obviously paying dividends, but not someone on my radar to bring in unless he gets, maybe a couple of tags and that price drops a fair bit. Callum Mills, he was top 5 for scoring for midfielders last year, and he's dropped off. I don't know what his role is week to week, and I don't think Sydney know either. He's a bit of a Mr. Fix-It, and I really don't like picking those kind of players. And we know that Mills can explode in a midfield role, but it would probably take a couple of injuries to Sydney's midfielders and an attractive price for me to bring in Mills at this stage. Jack Steele, obviously out injured. I think he's back this week. So he's someone that's a monitor for me. Definitely not buying him straight up, but with the way St Kilda are playing, he's on the monitor list. Christian Petrarca, I think he plays better second half of the year than first half. Um, Another one that's on my watch list, but I'll go more in depth on him when I look at forwards. Darcy Parish, I'm just not sure about. I'd rather have Merritt if I'm picking out of the Essendon boys, and yeah, Parish, he has a tendency to score well, but he's also burnt me a bit in the past, a bit more injury prone than Merritt is. So I would rather have Merritt out of the Essendon boys, but I do concede that Parish, I mean, if he got cheap enough and the fixture does open up later in the year, could potentially have Parish and Merritt both in the side. Sam Walsh, he's a guy that I absolutely love, but we'll see how he goes coming back from injury. I think last year he got rushed back from injury. It seems like he's taking his time with it this year, which you like to see. I actually, yeah, I just want to see how he comes back. And players coming back from injury generally do come back a bit slow. I think Walsh still had 30 touches on the weekend, though. He's someone that I'm watching. Not really, don't really have a firm opinion on right at this moment, but time will tell. Tom Green, he's a player that's already in my side. And he's getting a lot of the ball. He's just not using it very efficiently. Again, he's probably one of the more of those fantasy type players rather than SuperCoach. If you've got him, it's a pretty clear hold for me though. I still think he's going to go 100 plus, maybe 105 and 100 to 10, 105 to 110 if we're lucky. Still very much a hold. He's fine at the M8 position. But I guess having Tom Green means that I probably don't want to have too many more players from that tier 3 midfield. I've also got LDU. I'm probably a bit more bullish. I would maybe even have him in tier 2, but I think most people would probably have him tier 3. He dominated two pretty substandard midfields, was supposed to play Hawthorn in round 3 before being laid out with a calf. And I wonder if the calf is affecting him. I'm probably going to say no at this stage. He has had 2 bad matchups against 2 good midfield groups. I'll back him to bounce back, probably somewhere between 105 to 115 realistically, although I have him closer to the top of that range. The other players I've got in there, Josh Kelly. He's looked amazing at times, and maybe that game against Hawthorn at Norwood Oval didn't suit him. Does have an injury history, but again, if he was around 500k, I wouldn't be opposed to jumping on him. And then the last player, Jack McRae, maybe he can improve a bit. I think he's about 108 average so far this year, something like that. It hasn't been the Jack McRae of old, but there is a case for him. If he can get back into the centre bounces and having a prominent midfield role, then he is a chance of being a midfield 8. On the topic of McRae, we'll talk about him and Petrarca. These are both guys that were close to getting DPP in the forward line, but didn't. If either of these guys were to be forward eligible, which the next chance of that happening will be at the conclusion of round 11, then I think that would be in my tier 1 for forwards. And I would rather get them. You'd obviously rather have those guys in the forward line than the midfield. And they would be joining a pretty solid group of forwards in that tier 1. So Josh Dunkley, probably the best of them at the moment. Getting a big midfield role. We knew he could score in that role, and he is delivering thus far. Errol Goulden, his CBA seemed to be on the up, averaging just under 100. I think all of these guys in forward tier 1 go 100 plus, Dunkley probably goes a bit higher than the others, as do Petrarca and McRae, assuming they get DPP eligibility in round 11. And the other couple of guys I've got there, Tim Taranto, his disposal isn't great, but it doesn't matter when you're racking up the ball as much as he is and getting tackles. Midfield role, he's pretty much locked into a top 6 forward for mine. And Connor Rozee, someone I kind of touched on before, a little bit scared about his mid-minutes dropping. You'd prefer him to have a more prominent role, but still, he isn't someone that'll get completely turfed out of there. He should still be getting 50% CBAs in every game, and even with those numbers, that should be enough to hit 100 plus. Tier 2 of the forwards. Max Gawn, assuming he gets DPP. We'll see how that plays out, I think. Melbourne obviously going to go for a Gawn-Grundy combination. I think Gawn coming back from injury, I mean, he should get that forward DPP. I'm not sure how well he does score. If Grundy was to get injured, then Gawn becomes a great addition. But in that forward role, I mean, what do I see him scoring? He could push 100, but maybe more of a 95 would be my estimate. Still, he's someone that should get DPP, and if he gets cheap enough, then I will bring him in. The other player that I've got in tier 2 that might get DPP is Bailey Smith. Although he is injured for a couple of weeks anyway, I would have to see him get more midfield minutes, and if he is getting more midfield minutes, then he's probably not getting DPP. So maybe he'd have to come back as a forward, be underperforming, and then get thrown back into a midfield role. Could happen, probably unlikely. We'll add him on the list just in case. And then the two players that are actually forwards, Stephen Caniglio. He's been getting a lot of the ball, but he's, again, another one of those GWS boys that has been letting themselves down with Klanger's disposal efficiency hasn't been up there, giving away 50-meter penalties. I still think he's an okay option, but it's also worth noting that the first 6 rounds of the season was supposed to be Caniglio's easy patch. So I guess there is some appeal in bringing him in now. He is pretty cheap, but if he isn't dominating against the easy teams, then what is he going to do against the hard teams? I still think it's between 95 and 100, but he's not someone that I have a lot of confidence in at the moment. The player that's kind of a bit of a bolter, forgotten man, that'd be Zach Butters. Looking at the Port Adelaide CBAs, we can see in recent weeks that 68 and 64%. So, and particularly that last game against the Bulldogs, he was probably best on ground. So, can he keep getting the midfield minutes? That's one question mark. The other question mark is his durability. He has been injured a fair bit over his short career. So it's just those two question marks really that that probably have him in tier 2 rather than tier 1. He's definitely capable of scoring the same as those tier 1 boys, but I need to be sure that those midfield minutes aren't just a fad. And we saw last year, and he had a fair amount of midfield minutes in the first half of the year, but still like 58, 59, and then a 35, a 31 in there. And then the later half of the year, coming back from injury, was out of that rotation more than he was at the start of the year. So ended up averaging 38% for the year last year. I would have him at tier 2 at the moment. If you are really hot on him, though, this is the week to go and get him. His break even is pretty low, and he can push those. Like I said, the scoring potential is there for Butters to match those tier 1 forwards at a fairly cheap price. It's just the matter of whether you think the role is secure enough for him to get those CBAs and hoping that his injury history doesn't rear its neck. And then finally, into tier 3 of forwards, Jeremy Cameron. He started the year really hot. He's a key forward, though, and we've seen year in, year out that key forwards are just, they're liable to being really volatile picks. So, yes, he is in a great run of form. Yes, I would probably back him to win the Coleman. But, we see it time and time again with key forwards. Just the volatility hurts them, and they're normally available cheaper in the year. He's not cheap now, and if you've got him, obviously keep him, but he's not on my trade target. He's not on my radar to trade in the near future. Dylan Moore, I need to check the CBAs. I don't think he's getting any, but he is someone that pushes up fairly high up the ground. Hasn't had a single CBA this year. But yeah, he's someone that pushes fairly high up the ground, capable of getting the ball, laying tackles, scoring decently. It's just not the same as the big dogs, though. And unless there was a move into midfield, which I don't see happening, then Dylan Moore remains in my tier 3 forwards. Darcy Cameron, man, the Pies are really crying out for him to get back with, no backup ruckman. I'm not sure what they're going to do at ruck this week. McStay, I think, fractured his finger or something like that. So they will be crying out for Darcy Cameron to come back. Hopefully doesn't get rushed back, though. Hopefully he is fully fit when he returned. He was someone I slept on. I can't lie about that. I didn't think he would be a forward option this year, but he actually looks fairly good in the ruck, around the ground. Still, probably just a tier 3 option for me. Could push into tier 2 potentially, but I want to wait and see how everything plays out first. And then Shizu and Zeeble, already mentioned them. So, yeah. This is pretty much my list of players that I'm targeting over the course of the year. The players that I'm looking at getting in most urgently: Took Miller, easy matchups. Rory Laird, pretty cheap. Tom Stewart, scoring very well. I did have a down game a couple of weeks ago, but 600k is probably a fair price for him. And then tier 2 guys, maybe Merritt. Just not, yeah. We'll need to see if he gets off this week, of course, but he's someone that's definitely on my radar. Tough fixtures, though. And there's probably Sinclair as well. Last year didn't go below 100 at Marvel Stadium, although I do have some reservations over his how much St Kilda are using him as a option to rebound from 50. And it's probably Luke Ryan now. Luke Ryan, if I take a look at his break even, that'd be fairly low, I think. Yeah, 566k. Yeah, break even of 124. I think I'd probably want to get Ryan a little bit cheaper, though, especially when Sinclair's there. So I think Sinclair probably my pick of the defensive options. Ryan close for me, as is Stewart. And then forwards I'm not really looking at because I've got the top 4 in tier 1. So I could go a Butters or a Cogs, but I think I want to see what plays out with DPP first, and I want Caniglio to get a bit of form back. Just not 100% sold on Butters yet. I guess this is the week to jump on him, though, so he should be in trade consideration, but he isn't for me. And midfielders, it's Took, it's Laird, maybe Neil, maybe Merritt. So what are the trades that I'm actually looking at doing this week? Finally getting to the trade portion of it. So if we're looking at break-evens, who are the rookies that are expendable? It's Jinby, Oscar Baker. You could potentially hold him, but he's really only had one big score. So those are the two that are definitely out for me. People will have players like Caminiti, Cam McKenzie, who I think are bigger priorities. So I think if you're in the situation with Baker, then he's a potential hold. And also people with Brodie Grundy. It sounds like Gawn is potentially going to come back this week. I really, really hope that he does, because that will definitely put a massive dent in Grundy's scoring. Maybe not this week because Richmond don't have a recognised ruckman, but going forward, that'll definitely put a dent in Grundy's scoring. I didn't like him as a bridge option. He's ended up doing okay. He's made about 80k. But if you look at the other options you could have had, Tim English is just as much out of reach for you as if you had have had English. And then Sean Darcy, he's gone up 40k in his own right. So I think the ideal combination is English and Darcy. I've got Marshall here, who I'm a little bit sad about, but he can sit there. So who else is there that's expendable? Cade Chandler, 47 break even. He has averaged, 73 over the course of the season. And Melbourne do have a good fixture run. So he's someone I would prefer to hold. If you need him for the cash, then understandable. If you trade him, I would prefer to hold him. And the other player I would prefer to hold, Ashcroft as well, 44 break even. Still think he's got a little bit of money to be made. Would prefer to hold him just because he's scoring probably the best out of all of these rookies. And the other one is Darcy Wilmot, 23 break even. I think he can get up to 300k. The 68 was against North Melbourne though, so maybe he only scores 50s and 60s from here. So he's someone that I might have to get rid of. I'll go through the trade options now. So Jinby and Baker, definite outs for me. And these players are going to go to rookie price players.